All right, everybody, and welcome back to Show Choir Nation, the premier podcast of the Homeroom Show Choir Podcast Network. I'm your host, William. Alongside me is co-host Ian, and to my below is our guest tonight, Tony. Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today. Glad to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. And Ethan, I'll kick it to you as well. I believe you had quite the adventure this past Saturday.
No, yeah. So on Friday was my birthday, so celebrate a little bit of that. Celebrate the old 22. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Is
Yeah,
Ethan
so I
washed?
headed down.
Yeah, Ethan's 22. Is he washed?
Yeah, I'm Unk. That's what all the kids are telling me. So I'm Unk now. So, however, went down to St. Louis to go celebrate. Luckily, while I was down there, the next day was Troy, so I had a long day at Troy. Stayed for all finals, which I didn't know I was going to be doing, but I'm glad I did. And then drove back up for a Super Bowl party. So it's been a very long weekend for me. I know this week will feel very long, especially with the upcoming competitions that are loaded. I feel like this upcoming Saturday is going to be – my phone's going to be ringing off the hook while we happen to be at Chesterton. So I just feel like there's going to be a lot going on this week, and I'm happy that we get to cover it.
Absolutely. With that being said, we dive right into the results. Oh boy, Loveland Showfest. This one, certainly a hot topic all around the show choir community. We're going to start with the one thing that people know for sure, which is final results. And the final results of this one, in first place with best vocals, Fairfield Corliers. In second place with best choreography, Hurricane Red Hot. In third place, Olentangy Keynotes. In fourth place, Beaver Creek Friends. In fifth place, Hurricane Heatwave. And in sixth place, Fairfield Pure Elegance. Before we even touch on what happened in prelims, the differences between prelims and finals, Ethan, I don't think anyone was expecting Fairfield to win this competition.
No, and shout out to them for doing so. From what I've heard, they were probably first into going into finals, but a time penalty sent them back 2 spots or so. So the fact that they were both, well, technically they weren't first, but first in points in the beginning without the time penalty, and then the fact that they came back even hotter in finals to win over 3-4 very great groups. I feel like any of these groups could have won. I feel like Olentangy's on the up and up. Hurricane, to their name, has been red hot. So the fact that Fairfield has been come out of the gates like this is great, and I can't wait to see if they can keep it up.
Absolutely. Tony, as a Southerner, do you recognize any of the names here? And if so, what are you seeing?
Oh, I recognize a few of them. I don't know if I can pronounce it correctly off the bat. Olentangy? Is that right?
Olentangy, yeah.
Olentangy. I recognize Fairfield. I remember I wrote something about them this past summer. And I don't remember the other ones, but they ring a bell. Not as familiar, but they ring a bell.
Absolutely. And one name that was actually missing from this finals was ETC, the All-Americans. Mm-hmm. The All-Americans wound up missing finals, and it snapped a 14 competition final streak for them that dated all the way back to the Olentangy Keynote Classic in 2022. Ultimately, some of the way, and this is going to be a very interesting topic to kind of digest and as a broader show choir community. The way that the finalists were determined was a consensus ranking, and all groups were eligible for finals. So instead of just flat points, ordinal ranks were used. This is actually the format that showchoir.com, or not showchoir.com, Showchoir Nationals is using for their finalists this year as well, after kind of an error on points last year. And it's kind of gaining traction as a way not just to determine the final results, but to who makes finals as well. And during the course of that calculation and that program running, because it was electronically scored by a program, there was an error made. There were also missing perhaps point totals or votes somewhere along the line as well. I'm not exactly sure where the error occurred, but there was an error. And Loveland ultimately wound up adding a 6th finalist. They were only intending on having 5. They wound up bringing both Fairfield Pure Elegance and Hurricane Heatwave up to finals. At the time, it was believed that while Pure Elegance was announced the winner of the women's division, that it was actually Heatwave. Some stuff that came out today says that maybe the first instinct was right and that it was Pure Elegance who won the division based on points and perhaps ordinal ranks as well. So a bit of a messy situation there. But the other thing is that when we look at where people placed in prelims, Hurricane was first, Beaver Creek was second, Fairfield was third, and Olentangy was fourth. So none of the four varsity mixed groups in finals stayed where they were in prelims, which I think that when you have an event of this caliber is just something that kind of goes along for the ride as well. Ethan, I know that sometimes we see that going on. I know there may have been some time penalties going on, but obviously some groups rose, some groups fell. Out of the finalists, which one made the best impression on you?
I mean, kind of hard to tell because, I mean, it kind of goes both ways. I feel like Fairfield really has impressed me, like I said earlier, like this being their first competition, and many were kind of probably sleeping on them. That just is what it is. And the fact that they came out strong, even if they had a time penalty, they still had to put on an amazing show. And I feel like for ETC, that's just another thing that sticks out to me. You know, this is a group that's been on the rise in Ohio. Then Marysville and Solon have been the top three, at least in my mind, from the outside looking in. So the fact that they didn't make finals at this competition, it's honestly no knock because this was an amazing competition, and the way it scored still has my head spinning a little bit. But that's just is what it is. So that's just something I'm going to have to get used to. But I also want to give two huge shout outs to Hurricane Heatwave and Fairfield Pure Elegance. I mean, two fantastic all trouble choirs making finals at an amazing competition. That goes a long way for your seasons.
For sure. And we'll move on to the Papio South Titan Classic in Nebraska. The final results of this one: Gretna Revolution, grand champion, best choreography, best band. Westside ATSC, second place. Omaha South, the Ambassadors, third place. Lincoln East Express, fourth place. Miller North, fifth place. Elkhorn South, sixth place. Gretna Revolution is back. Second competition of the year, first win of the year. Not only that, but a clean sweep of what was last week the number one ranked Nebraska choir in our Nebraska poll rankings. Westside ATSC. Tony, I'll toss this one to you first. ATSC has been in the news a lot this year. Gretna has been in the news a lot last year. What can you draw from some of these results?
Well, this kind of stems back to freshman year, or so 2 years ago for me in college. I've been a big Gretna fan. After seeing their Da Vinci show, I've been on board. As you know, Westside recently beat Brandon as Brandon's first competition of the season. They traveled up. But the fact it's a full sweep goes to show you that Gretna's, I mean, they're not going anywhere. They're here full force. They swept a school that just did it. I think they swept Brandon too. So, I mean, it's just that they handled it. There's nothing else to say there.
Absolutely. Ethan, going down the line, you and I have exchanged plenty of conversations about some of these groups ranging from Lincoln East, Miller North, Elkhorn South, Omaha South. Out of the groups that didn't make the top two, who are a couple of the ones that stick out to you?
Omaha South has to be. Omaha South. There is someone, I don't know if it's in our comments or on showcore.com, that always tells us that we are sleeping on Omaha South every single time. And so far they are right. We all have been sleeping on Omaha South. The fact that they beat three amazing choirs that finish at the bottom of this pack in Lincoln East, Miller North, and Elkhorn South. I went as far as putting Elkhorn South maybe my third spot when we did our show last week. So the fact that they ended up,
I think I did as well.
Yeah, it was just insane. Again, the fact that they are growing at this rate is amazing. I feel like this scene is just the craziest one out of them all, just because there's so many good groups, and the fact that there's so many risers compared to fallers. It truly is amazing what Nebraska's doing. And then I just want to touch on Westside. I said this could probably happen going into this competition. And I even said that they could fall asleep. I doubt they fell asleep. I bet Gretna just went out there and had an amazing show. because those are two amazing choirs. And I mean, Westside, they still have a lot of comps to go. They have an amazing Wheaton-Warrenville South matchup coming up soon. Besides that, I really don't know where. I haven't checked. But
they have a great Hastings matchup coming up.
You're right. I knew it was really good. I just forgot it. So
Westside is done competing in Nebraska for the year,
which is insane. And I mean, we'll get to it in a little bit, but like Waconia is done. That's another thing. Like these amazing groups over here are finishing up their seasons, and the fact that some are just getting started. We're in that weird state of show choir at the moment where people are finishing and people are just starting, and then you won't see California start until March. So, we're trying to lock in here and get all these results in here. So, yeah, I feel like this was an amazing competition, and shout out to Gretna for a great win.
For sure. Just something I want to touch on as well. It was a no-win weekend for Westside after I feel like they've gotten not used to, but they've reeled off a couple of 3-win weekends. Elkhorn South Shockwave wound up taking home the win in the women's division, and Gretna Evolution won in the prep division. I just got to layer some love on Gretna Evolution as well. That group specifically has taken big steps forward in the past 2 years. I was able to talk to their director, Dakota Matthew, last year at a competition. Just great things going on from top to bottom in the Gretna program. We'll move on to the Bettendorf Rhythm on the Riverbend. Grand champion Wheaton North Flight, best vocals, best band. Davenport North Northside Establishment, second place. Waconia Power Company, best choreography, third place. Liberty Storm, fourth place. Cedar Rapids Jefferson, fifth place. Davenport West, sixth place. Waconia's season ends with a first, a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth. Yeah,
that's insane. All over the board, Will. It's honestly quite an impressive feat that they just did. But the fact that they got best choreography in third place just shows how tight those top three spots had to be. Wheaton North, we know that they have a lot of kids on stage this year, so that probably could have factored into a lot of their best vocal award at this competition. They always have a rockin' band, so that is definitely not a surprise. But definitely have to give some love to Davenport North here. This is a group that probably was third place coming into this competition in a lot of people's minds. And the fact that
maybe even fourth.
Maybe even fourth. And the fact that they came top two shows a lot, or tells a lot about that Davenport North program. So very, very happy for them. And I mean, this is Wheaton North's first comp compared to Waconia's last comp. So could Wheaton North have one of those dominant years that they had like back in 2019, I believe. So long road to go for Wheaton North and a lot of great competitions to go, but it's starting to look that way out the gate.
We do have a comment from Ben that says, Davenport North truly shocked me on Saturday. Their program has consistently been on the rise, and their show is truly special this year. Yeah, I have to give a big shout out to Davenport North as well. They really came out of the pandemic swinging. They had a very successful 2022 season and maybe a bit quieter of years in 2023 and 2024, but they've remained dangerous. I think Central steals a lot of the spotlight in Davenport, but North has been a very quality group of its own. And if this is where they stack up against Wheaton North and Waconia, I think that when they start, really, because I was almost trending into the late season, when that show really rounds the corner and gets into late season form, I think they have the potential to do some serious damage as well. Looking down the results, we also have Liberty, Cedar Rapids, Jefferson, and Davenport West there to also give kudos to Cedar Rapids, Jefferson. Their season maybe was on panic watch a little bit. They missed finals twice to begin their season. Now they've reeled off 3 consecutive fifth-place finishes. So Westside delegation certainly not becoming the habitually missed finals choir that perhaps some people were worried about. Tony, anything that you want to add to this one?
Not per se. I do want to touch on what Ethan kind of mentioned a little bit. For Waconia to get second runner-up with the best choreo caption, it shows you how slim of a margin for error you have at the top here.
Absolutely. We're going to run into a bunch of miscellaneous results. There were almost too many good stories, and we only have an hour to do this show. So we're going to reel some off real quick. Dwight D. Eisenhower Express taking their first grand championship since 2004, beating El Paso at Crete Moni this weekend. Elkhorn North Adrenaline taking their first ever win as a program. Remember, that program is only 5 years old. They beat Norris at Elkhorn's Red Carpet Classic this weekend. Keller Blue Lights picking up right where they left off in Texas last season, winning the Fort Worth Southwest Invitational to kick off the season. Sioux Falls Washington Classic Connection sweeping Pius X at Lincoln Southwest, really putting one on the board for South Dakota. Brandon Brio sweeping West Jones at Northeast Jones, taking revenge on last week where West Jones got the better of Brandon. Put 3 groups in finals at the Oak Mountain King of the Mountain Invitational. Hoover Paradigm taking their first ever win at the Opelika Southern Showcase. Waltham second over Daniel Hand, although it was a split caption decision this time. Urbandale beats Blue Valley, Mount Zion, and Marquette at Troy Buchanan. It's Urbandale's first win of the season. And a pair of smaller schools both pick up their second win of the season. Bishop Heelan Harmonia Mundi and Euclid Varsity Corral both went back-to-back this week. Bishop Heelan won the inaugural Sioux Center Showdown, and Euclid won the Sissonville Touch of Class Classic in West Virginia. I'll toss it to Ethan and then to Tony. Pick one of those bullet points, explain what it means and why you like it so much.
I feel like I have to talk about Troy Buchanan. I was there. So I just have to I have to take this one. Urbandale finally breaking through, winning a bunch of captions. They had a fantastic show. I felt so blessed to see it. Urbandale is just different with the props. They are just different. So their Home Alone show, it was literally like, oh my goodness, what prop do they not have from the show? They had your paint buckets. They had crowbars. They had tacks. They had the spider. They had anything you could imagine from Home Alone. So I thought they did an amazing job, and they were probably the best overall choir there. I have to shout out Blue Valley because I think that this is a very underappreciated choir, only because that they are from the region that they are. I feel like it's hard for them to get around it sometimes. I don't even know how to explain their show. Like, for example, do you know when you watch those Los Al's and those Burbank John Burroughs or Clinton and you go, what did I just watch? I don't know what it was, but that was amazing. Like, it takes you days to realize what just happened. Blue Valley was one where it felt so relatable, and the judges related to the whole show. Their theme was amazing. Their treble soloist, I would put her up with any of them. She was amazing, and they're addicted to elevated surfaces. Blue Valley might have a death wish with that, but it was super cool. Great show. Mount Zion was their first competition as well. I feel like they will be a lot better at Chesterton this weekend. You know, a lot of first comp jitters. Got to get things out of your system, whether it's crew, band, or the performers themselves. I felt like they had a great show, but I felt like Blue Valley just related, and Urbandale was the strongest choir there. And then I got to give a lot of mark. Will put me on notice when me and oh my gosh, I don't know, Michael didn't put Marquette into our finals. That might have been my biggest mistake of the whole year. Marquette had a fantastic show. Their closer was so much fun. They had a blast on stage, just pure fun the whole time. And then, yeah, this competition was a great one. And congrats to Urbandale for an amazing victory.
Tony, what single result stuck out to you the most?
I was going to talk about Blue Valley, but Ethan beat me to it. But I will talk on it's kind of two things. It's two comps, but 1 point. It's always a good thing to have new show choirs pop up. And this weekend in the South, we had 4 making their debut. We had 2 at Opelika with Pike Road. They had their mixed group and their treble group debuting. And at Homewood, we had debuting groups from Leeds High School, and I believe it was Carrollton from Georgia. So not just all from one state. You also get an extra from Georgia there. 4 debuting groups in the South is pretty cool. And then you add into it, I believe this upcoming weekend, we either have 1 or 2 more debuting show choirs. So it's a constantly growing field down here, and that's always good for the art.
Absolutely. I kind of want to tag on new groups. I love to see new winners as well. You know, only 3% of high schools do show choir, and of those, you know, maybe 10% of groups ever win a competition. So for Elkhorn North to take their first ever win in a Nebraska scene that we just said is one of the most chaotic out there, they weren't even in our top 15 Nebraska rankings last week. And so for them to kind of pop up and show out and show a win over Norris, I think is huge for them. And also Paradigm, maybe Opelika was a bit of a smaller field this year, but Albertville is still a choir that they beat. John Kincaid has been there for a long time, I think like close to 10 years now, and he has solidly built that program up. So I want to give a big shout out to as well. They used to have a different name, right? Or am I tweaking?
They might have. I can't remember it off the top of my head if so. I do want to point out, though, they were this close to beating Auburn at Tallahassee to start off the year. They were about 7 or 8 points, I believe.
Yeah. So those were just a couple that stood out to me. And I'm going to try desperately to figure out if I am believing something that is actually – wow, maybe I just gaslit myself. I can't believe that. I think it was Helena that had a name change, perhaps. Was it Helena? Because Helena used to be Spotlight, right, before they were High Frequency?
If so, then they definitely did have a name change because that's not what they're called now.
Okay.
That'd be another crazy
story. Hoover's never been called anything except Paradigm, so I just gaslit myself. Congratulations to me. Insane. Anyways, we're going to keep it on the Southern swing, and we do have our resident Southern expert in the house. So we've had generally 3 weekends of solid competition so far in the South. We had Tallahassee and Prep at the end, and South Jones at the end of January. And then we had South Jones, JA, and Opelika, and something else on February 1st. And then this past weekend, we had Oak Mountain, Opelika, and Northeast Jones. So pretty much everyone besides Clinton has gotten out there on stage yet. What are a couple of the big storylines or surprises that you've seen through this season?
I kind of feel like it's a no-brainer. You have to start at South Jones, right? West Jones beating Brio with 2 captions. It was far from what we expected. And then you factor into that Oxford getting dead last of this competition, last in their division behind both West Marion and Wayne County. It was just one of those results. You kind of have to like refresh your screen and be like, did the website make an error? Is it? But no, I remember we heard that and we were like, oh, wow. So that's probably the main storyline so far from the season. Also, kind of an underrated storyline that we've been watching is Tift County has taken a big step up as a program in general. Tiff or their mixed group, I don't know if they placed. I can't remember if they placed first yet or not, but I know they've placed at least second at both their competitions. They've been doing great. And then their treble groups, oh my gosh. Testosterone. I always want to call it Testosterone. It's always like this far away. They've done I would call them the best bass group in the South so far. And then you have what's the girls' group name? Ladies' Choice. Thank you. They took vocals from Homewood's treble group at a competition. So they're it's not out of nowhere, but I can't say that I expected it. So it's always good to see a program kind of take the next step like that. And then also another kind of smaller story would be Westavia Hills. I wouldn't call it a drop-off because they did take captions from Homewood's Continuum at this last competition in the division. But to go from number 1 last season to now they're kind of fighting in the midst against these other groups. It'll tap into something I talk about later, but it's something interesting to watch.
For sure. And kind of something else that we're watching is that a lot of Southern groups are traveling this year. We have Brandon going out of region 3 times. We have Grenada going up to Mount Zion. We have Jackson Academy going up to Glenwood. As of until about a week ago, we had Oak Mountain also going up to Glenwood. We have Oxford taking the trip to West Virginia this weekend. What is up with all these groups going out, and are you proud of them with how they've done?
Starting off, proud doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. Let's start with Brandon alone. I'm just going to name some of the groups they're going against. Or they going against / have gone against. Westside, Carmel, Limar, Mount Zion, Wheaton, Warrenville South, Glenwood, Loveland, Troy. That sounds like a death wish. If you put them all in one competition, you can't tell me who makes finals. And I didn't even mention Grenada, who they're not even competing against in the South. They're going to Illinois to compete against them. So, yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that other than it's crazy, and I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy, a schedule like that. But, hey, listen, if all it takes is is one good performance, and that list goes from a death wish to, oh, they did that. Oh, wow. So all props to them. I hope them the best. Is it Chesterton this next weekend, right? They'll be going against what I consider their hardest competition with Carmel and Linmar. That's a doozy. But yeah, and off of that, didn't even mention Grenada and JA in Oxford, like you said. Grenada is going to be joining them at Glenwood against Wheaton Warrenville South. Or not, they're not going to be going at Mount Zion against Glenwood, Wheaton Warrenville South, Grenada. Brandon.
We also got Spain Park going to that comp too.
Yeah.
At Mount Zion?
At Mount Zion.
Yeah. I did not know that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, add to it then. And then JA, like you mentioned, they were going to go with Oak Mountain. Unfortunately, they dropped out, but they're going against Brownburg, Wheaton Warrenville South, and Mount Zion. I also noticed this. Every single group that's going up north is going to compete against Wheaton Warrenville South, and both JA and Brandon are going to compete against Mount Zion as well. And funny enough, those are the two groups coming down south.
It makes you think, Tony. It makes you think.
I'm about to say, I wonder how that works. But yeah, no, I have a lot of groups going up north. I kind of forgot to mention Oxford, but I feel like you may have more insight into that because I don't know much about the West Virginia scene.
Yeah, so it really surprised me when I saw it. Oxford is going up to the Capital City Classic this weekend in West Virginia. And what I will say is that they picked, I think, a really good opportunity for them to shine. You're going to have Hurricane and Cosby there, and those two programs are both going to put two groups in finals, so that's fine. And the two groups that Oxford is going up in small mixed are Polka and Doddridge County, and Polka is far and away the best small group in West Virginia. They routinely beat middle mixed groups, and the middle mixed group or the middle mixed field at Capital, Sissonville, Herbert Hoover, Nitro, St. Clairsville, Riverside. I would say there are good groups in there. Nitro and St. Clairsville both found success this year. And with only 6 finalists, Oxford is certainly not a slam dunk for finals, but I think that if they could beat Polka and or make the overall finals, I think that it would really put a lot of people on notice for how competitive Southern small mix show choir is.
I completely agree. I kind of mentioned this talking about the Southern groups going up north, but we also have those groups coming down south. We'll get the first one this weekend. Wheaton Warrenville South will be coming to an absolute dogfight at Homewood. So that'll be an interesting result to keep an eye out for. And then you also have Mount Zion and is it Burleson Centennial?
Burleson Centennial, Shades of Blue.
Centennial, 1 for 2. Okay. They'll be joining Mount Zion coming down to Brandon Elite. So that'll be fun to watch. I think I may be able to make that one pending. We'll see. But it's always good to see the traveling love return with groups from the north visiting down south. I know Wheaton Warrenville South, was it 2 years ago they came to Pedal?
Yeah, or so.
Glenwood also came down a couple years ago, I think.
That's right. Yeah, they came down to Homewood. I was there for that one. That's right.
We ended up a dogfight against Attaché, I believe.
Glenwood?
Or no, I thought it was Wheaton Warrenville South.
That was against Brandon.
Oh, it was against Brandon.
Yeah. I do like to remind people, though, West Jones did beat Wheaton Warrenville South in prelims. That did happen. Caught us off guard, too, for a little bit. But
West Jones Giant Slayer, man.
It's when you least expect them.
Absolutely. So we've kind of talked about this, talked about that, talked about groups from all over, but there are lots of divisions in the South. There are now 4 mixed divisions in Mississippi. There are 3 in Alabama. There are women's divisions. There are men's divisions. Sometimes there are 5 middle school divisions and 1 group in each division. Which division, and you can separate by states if you want, like just Mississippi small mixed or just Alabama middle mixed. What division right now do you think is the most competitive division in Southern show choir?
This is what I was referring to earlier when I said I'll touch on it later. Alabama middle mixed. Like I said, Westavia Hills going from first to just trying to stay alive in that division. It is rough. You have kind of Hoover and Homewood kind of at the top right now, Northeast Jones as well. We just haven't seen those two really cross paths yet. Also, what I consider to be the most underrated group in the South right now, and one of the gradually hottest groups in South Jones. They've gotten better year after year after year with their new director, Austin Perkins. they're doing great. I'm excited to see them compete against Northeast. I don't know when exactly they do, but I'm looking forward to that. Which I know that's not Alabama middle mix, but it's just that tier in general. It used to be what I consider the small division to be the most competitive, but this year that middle division / 2A, 3A for Mississippi, it's really taken that next step up.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear it because longtime listeners of this podcast know that I love small schools. I love the smaller groups, the undercard divisions, whatever you want to call them. And for divisions that, oftentimes are going right before lunch or right after lunch, and they may not draw the biggest crowds, I'm really excited to hear that is some of the big choir that is going on in the South this year. Ethan, you got any questions?
No, I one thing that came to my mind when you guys were talking, I find it very interesting as well that Brandon competed at Chesterton last year. So, did they know it's going to be a bloodbath this year and get that step up, get that travel in?
I mean, looking at the schedule, I don't know if it made much of a difference.
That is true. And then Eric Taylor from Mount Zion has ties to the South, so that is very interesting that it's going back there. He used to take the Caterly Energy down there a few times. And yeah, Ween's been down there before and has put on some amazing shows. I love how everything's kind of intertwining. I love it so much. The influences from the South, the North, wherever. The fact that they're all coming together and competing against each other, it's not a nationals, is super cool to see.
Yeah. My main hope from here on out is I hope sometime in the next couple of years or so, we see a California group repay Jackson Prep's trip out west from last year and come visit us. That'd be pretty interesting.
I think California groups might be a bit of a tough sell just because it is just so far from literally anywhere to California and then back again. But I would certainly love to see like maybe more Texas groups coming over. We did see Keller Central go last year, maybe like a Broken Arrow instead of going to the Midwest. Maybe a Virginia power player like Cosby or Clover Hill, maybe a West Virginia power player. Maybe like one of those Southern Ohio area groups, looking at you, Loveland, Fairfield, Beaver Creek, those kind of deals, Olentangy. I would love to see, more groups kind of go down there and, because you can certainly, make a weekend or like kind of like a half week trip out of, if you're going to Tupelo, like you hit up Memphis or, there's plenty to do in Birmingham or whatever as well. So I will say, we can all wish for it. Yeah, the amount of chocolate bars you would have to sell, it gets a lot more, but we can always hope for that, right? And one thing that we don't have to for that is happening is the Homewood South Central Classic this weekend in the large mixed division. Auburn Varsity Singers, Enterprise Encores, Northwest Rankin, the Ambassadors, Own Singers, Petal, Spain Park, and Wheaton Warrenville South. Middle mixed, just Albertville. Small mixed, Pell City and Prattville. Women's division, Albertville, Auburn, Enterprise, Northwest Rankin, Oak Mountain, Petal, and Wheaton Warrenville South. Men's division, Auburn and Northwest Rankin. There is a lot to unpack here. 5 finalists. There will be a lot of good groups on the outside looking into finals. Tony, what is your first analysis of this?
First analysis, if I have to pick who's I think is going to win every division, just off the top of my head, off the gun, I'm going Oak Mountain, Albertville, Pell City, and then Auburn for men's. Now, do not hold me to that because that's first instinct. I kind of put notes to the side here. Your top dogs of this competition kind of obviously are going to be your Oak Mountain, Petal, Wheaton Warrenville South, and Auburn. But it's always whenever you think you have, how it's going to go, that's when it always goes off. I mentioned there's a question here that kind of talks about who I think is going to make finals. Is there a defined top 5? Wheaton, Oak Mountain, Petal, Auburn, and Northwest. Honestly, I don't even know if there's a top 4. I feel like Oak Mountain, Petal, Wheaton Warrenville South, those are your confident locks. Those are groups who are other than Oak Mountain. They've already kind of shown that they can compete here and place here. I've heard great things about Oak Mountain, hence why I feel confident kind of betting them off the gun. But with Auburn starting off the season against Hoover and just barely beating a middle mixed group, it makes me a little bit nervous going into this competition because, like you said, there is a ton of competition, not even considering a treble group making finals here, like Oak Mountains or Petals or Wheaton Warrenville South, which is a very real possibility. Auburn takes one slip up and boom, gone. Northwest Rankin, they're a little less than Auburn, but I think it's like a 50-50 shot for them. They've won a competition, got third behind Grenada and Tupelo. I would expect them to make it, but again, it's going to be tight. You can't make too many mistakes here. Otherwise, you'll have groups like Enterprise, Spain Park, those treble groups that I mentioned, waiting at the fringe, waiting for you to make a mistake, and then bam, they capitalize. Albertville will be looking to bounce back here after losing what was a potential GC to Hoover. They'll be looking to upset one of those groups kind of on the fringe, and you have that small mixed division as well. I don't know too much about Pell City and Prattville, to be honest. I haven't gotten to watch their shows this year, but I know off recent trends, I'd go Pell City, I think. Don't hold me to that one, though. I'll need to do a bit more research. And then a bit of an underrated group in their division is Northwest Rankin's the Allure. They're kind of like South Jones. They've gotten continually better every season. So don't be shocked if they beat a group they're not supposed to. And then in the men's, you have Auburn, Northwest Rankin. I just give it to Auburn. I could very well be wrong, though.
Well, that is why we have people on the show who know what they're talking about, right, Ethan?
Yes, thank goodness.
One thing that I do want to ask you about real quick is kind of like a sidebar to this. Spain Park, this is a group that I believe moved up a division this year. How do you think they've been doing?
I think they've been doing really well. Oh, let me pull up their placements real quick because they've made a few times where I'm like, oh, they didn't just make a move. Because, normally when a program takes a step up, it's not that they do worse, but their placements kind of show that they have, those growing pains, which, and that happens with choirs taking that step up. We've seen it with Northwest. We've seen it with Biloxi. Like you name a choir that stepped up, most likely they had those growing pains. Spain Park, they've come out hot. I'm pulling it up now. My computer would go a little bit faster. That'd be appreciated. Let's see. Yeah, they got second runner-up overall at Jackson Prep Masters behind JA and Northwest. Oakmount King of the Mountain Invitational, they got second runner-up there behind what would be Homewood and Auburn, meaning they beat Nexus and Continuum from Homewood, which is nothing to bat an eye at. So I think they've done a really good job so far in their first season stepping up into that new division.
Wonderful. We do have a quick comment. Can you talk about Gretna East, Echoes of the East for 30 seconds? Great. You have 30 seconds. Gretna Revolution is going to win this one. Elkhorn North, just coming off their first win. I would look for them to be second. Hastings is a very underrated Central Nebraska choir. I have them in third. Wahoo has been a very surprising small school this year. I would have them in either fourth or fifth when you start factoring in Gretna Evolution. And then Kearney Pops is another underrated group out of Central Nebraska. I am very excited that they are coming to Omaha to compete. I think they could potentially make some waves as well. So good luck to Gretna East on hosting their first event. And my 30 seconds is up. Our next of the week is the Olentangy Keynote Classic. This one features a lot of the same players that were at the hotly contested Loveland event last weekend in large mix. We have Beaver Creek, Findlay, Grove City, Homestead, Loveland, and Marysville. In small mixed, Elgin, Milton Union, Ravenswood, River Valley, and Whitehall Yearling. And in women's, Grove City, Homestead, Loveland, Marysville, and Middletown. Ethan, taking aside all the matchups, this is the first time that we see Findlay first edition this season.
This has to be the latest that they've almost ever started, right? Before, of course, like getting into a groove and like what they want their schedule to look like, so to say. Just to my knowledge. So the fact that they're starting this late after some of these groups have already got 2 comps in, maybe even 3. So it's going to be very interesting. I do think they're still going to do pretty well here. They have some growing pains with the new director, so we will see how that goes. But I'm kind of just going to go with the flow, and I could see them placing top 3 here easy. Not easy. I take that back. Nothing's ever easy in life, and definitely this competition is not easy. I don't know why I said easy. But I feel like that there's 4 groups who can win this competition. I truly believe that. Off rip, if I'm going to make a prediction, no captions because I think they could go anyway. I'm going to go Marysville at the 1. I just feel like they're very consistent and they're a very strong choir. I'm going to do Findlay at the 2 because why not? I would love to see them come out of the gate and strike iron while it's hot. Show people that some things don't change. Grove City at the 3. That's a very strong choir this year. I have enjoyed seeing them in their placements. I'm going to have Beaver Creek at the 4, Loveland at the 5. And I feel like this last spot, I have to give it to Homestead because this Homestead is a very good choir. And honestly, Homestead could even get up to 4th place at this competition, I think.
Homestead got beat by Northrop this past weekend.
I know. And that's what you didn't let me finish, Will. Gosh. I was going to say, I think it's either the Homestead or Grove City girls group, class or Touch of Class. So, or is it Class Act? Oh my gosh. Touch of Class Act.
It is Class Act is the girls group.
I knew it. I don't know why I said Touch of Class. So yeah. I feel like Grove City's girls group can sneak in here. However, this is an amazing competition, and I feel like those last 3 spots are going to be a dog battle. A dog fight. I don't know how it's really going to end up. Very excited to see it though.
For sure, Tony. Anything you want to add here?
Being from the South, I'm not as familiar with these groups, but I did kind of notice Loveland historically is a pretty strong choir. But you had them in 5th. What's going on there?
I don't know. I just feel like this is honest. I mean, I don't know. I really, truly don't know. And I'm very excited to see them in Mount Zion because I haven't seen a Loveland show since, I don't even know. Was it 2019? So actually, I've been at their competition, but sadly didn't get to see them perform because of COVID. But this is a program that you said has been a historically very strong program. I feel like that they have had their battles this season. I feel like Beaver Creek had a great showing at their competition last weekend in the mess of all those things. And I feel like Grove City has slowly but surely become a top choir in the state. I feel like they're very, very traditional, very classic. They don't go out of the ordinary. You know what you're probably getting from Grove City. So I don't know. I feel like this is a tough field. And I feel like it can honestly go any way. Loveland could win this competition for all I know. We'll see. I don't think they will, but they could.
Okay, that's enough of your this can go anyway. I don't know anything. Yada, 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 whatever.
Tony brought it up. I wasn't going to go there, but Tony brought it up. It wasn't my fault.
My bad.
I was done talking.
All right. Well, I have opinions on how things will go. I'll take Marysville with choreo in 1st, Grove City with vocals in 2nd, Findlay in 3rd, Beaver Creek in 4th, Homestead in 5th, and Loveland in 6th. I know I'm going to have to explain myself. Again, kind of like Ethan said, I feel like Loveland has had their battles this year. And, of course, this is the time of the season where shows turn corners on a Wednesday night in the middle of rehearsal. Something clicks. And all of a sudden that group jumps up 2 spots. I feel like Beaver Creek was that group last week. I was absolutely not expecting Beaver Creek to be 2nd in large mixed prelims at Loveland. So all of a sudden, maybe I was sleeping on Beaver Creek. Homestead was a group that lost to Northrop last week. I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb for putting them ahead of Loveland, but I don't know. Okay, I just said that I wasn't going to say I don't know. But regardless, I am explaining myself. I have opinions. Small mix is going to be interesting because I feel like none of these groups are really at the top of Ohio small mixed. So someone's going to have to win the division. It'll be a good division win for them. Women's division is going to be an absolute smackdown. Marysville's girls group is in their 1st year. Grove City's girls group, very good this year as well. Never count out Loveland Allure as well. So Olentangy, Ohio, 2 banger comps in 2 weeks. Cannot lie. Ohio's on a bit of a heater right now. We'll move on to the Urbandale Show Choir Invitational. This is, I think, USCI number 46, maybe? High 40s for them. So closing in on 50 for them. The field for this one. Okay, I'll take a pause right here. We're going to talk about Chesterton on this episode because we're going to have another Chesterton episode later in the week, just Chesterton. Date to be determined, time to be determined, but it'll be right back here on YouTube. Watch out for that. Ethan and I will both be at Chesterton, weather permitting, which that does look kind of dicey right now, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So all your Chesterton fill just a bit later in the week. The Urbandale lineup. Broken Arrow, Johnston, Millard West, Mitchell, Waukee Northwest. Discuss.
This, honestly, the more the season's gone along, the more things change. When you see a lineup at the beginning of the year, you go, that's the comp of the year. That's the one that we need to keep our eyes on. But those competitions are middle of the year, end of the year. A lot of things change. And as time has come on, I think that this is the competition of the year. I truly do. I think some wacky stuff is going to happen. Like, you're going to have to put a group in 6 here. And none of these groups deserve 6. It just is what it is, you know? Like, I don't even know. I'm just going to run through my prediction because it's wrong. Millard West at the 1. And I said I don't know, but I said it again because it's a truly 1. I don't think anyone knows. I don't think
no one knows with this one. And I'm throwing my hands up.
Give me a break. I think Millard West is going to take it. Why not? Millard West, Johnson, Mitchell, Waukee Northwest, Broken Arrow, and Waukee. That is so wrong. But honestly, I think Millard West had a great showing at their first competition, beating Mitchell. I think Mitchell is a fantastic choir. I think Johnson is a group that is always so consistent. Waukee Northwest vocals, I feel like, can go a long way in this competition. That's kind of why I have them over Broken Arrow and Waukee, except Waukee is on an upturn. I don't know. This, it's wrong. Take it as a grain of salt. But this, whoever wins here is going to have something to say. Bragging rights, something. I don't know what it is, but the results are going to be massive in the show choir community.
So there we have our answer to Michael's question. Are we going to see a top 3 placement for West in the groove? The answer, according to Ethan, is yes. Tony, do you want to put your hat in the ring here?
You know what? I'll throw a little dart on the board. I don't know why. I got a feeling Johnston Innovation is going to get first here. And I feel like Millard West gets top 3 for look, see, he gets it. I feel like Millard West does get top 3 here, but I'm also an EOS fan. So I'll put Waukee Northwest in there because why not?
Oh, boy. All right. Yeah, I think, Ethan, kind of going back to what you said, some competitions, the lineup gets released, or at least you put together schedules and you have a pretty good idea of who's going where, and you start to get some ideas of, okay, this is going to be a pretty big thing. I feel like Chesterton was the big headliner in summer, and Chesterton is still going to be an amazing competition. Linmar, Carmel, Brandon, Mount Zion, Carroll, who's an upstart group, Millard North, a really loaded small division as well. Urbandale is one of those where Millard West had a phenomenal showing their first competition. Mitchell had a phenomenal showing their first competition. Waukee Northwest and Johnston have already traded blows so far this season. It's the first ever matchup between Waukee and Waukee Northwest. Broken Arrow cleaned house last weekend. No shortage of storylines here. None. This is like only 6 groups too. And I feel like you'd be hard pressed. Like Show Choir Nationals sometimes doesn't have this many storylines with 10 or 12 groups competing. It's just insane. Like you said, there's going to be a group that finishes 6th here, and you're going to look at that and be like, it's going to be one of those things where people look back in 5 years and they're like, oh, what's that 6th place doing on that choir's record?
Whoa.
Oh, no. If you were here and you remember it, that 6th place absolutely was not indicative of that choir's season. Boy, I don't even know really where I'm going to go with this one. I'll take Millard West. I'll take Millard West at the 1. I will take Waukee Northwest 2, Johnston 3, Mitchell 4, Broken Arrow 5, Waukee 6. Again, like Waukee 6, Broken Arrow 5. Yeah, just one of those predictions where you feel uncomfy after doing it, but I wouldn't want to be on that judging panel. That's all. Well, okay, I would because I would see tons of great shows, but I also wouldn't because I'd have to sit there and grade them. So I don't know if we know the judging panel for this one.
Being a critique is going to be insane. You get all those notes from the judges, and then they're probably all going to be fantastic, really nitpicky stuff, and then you're going to have to go into that warm-up room or back room or wherever they take their critique and be like, your show is amazing. Here are these really tiny nitpicky things that the judges said because you guys are all fantastic. I couldn't imagine being a critique nor a judge.
So the critique judges for this one, who are going to have the pleasure of delivering notes, are Stephen Albaugh and Brendan Ball. The vocal judges are Nancy Allen, Melody Clutter, and Brandon Dean, and the visual judges are Carolyn Edgerton and Sion Tobridge. So the band judge is David Breeze. So lots of big names on that panel, both on the vocal side, the visual side, even the critique side as well. Stephen Albaugh, very seasoned judge, very well-respected judge. Not sure what the finals panel is going to look like. They kept all the judges and added critique judges for 7-member finals panel. I think that would be nuts. I think that would probably be the best way to determine a consensus winner, because then you have 7 judges and 6 groups. So you're going to have a group with at least 2 first place votes.
Yes.
So perhaps that wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. Assuming they're using consensus ordinals, I think if Urbandale is using points, there are a lot of ways for things to go wrong, because I feel like there'd be plenty of ties at this competition. So assuming Urbandale is using,
you wouldn't even know. You wouldn't even know, like, as an outsider, if things went wrong, because you'd be like, well, yeah.
We just knew something was going to happen, right?
Or like you see these other groups get other placements, it's like, yeah, there's probably a mistake there or something. This is like, okay, yeah, that happened. So, like, to your point, anything can happen, and if some definitely could happen on the back end. So, very excited to see how it turns out.
We're going to have, I believe, multiple homeroom people at Urbandale. So
I wish I was one of them, low-key.
Yeah.
Chesterton is very good comp to go to, if weather permitting, like you said. But I haven't seen majority of these groups, and if I could see them, that would make my day, make my year. So jealous.
For sure. We have about 5 minutes left, so we're going to rapid fire through a couple of competitions. Center Grove of the Midwest, CG Bomb, as it's colloquially called within the borders of Indiana. Franklin Central, North Central, Zionsville, Fishers. On the side, this is generally the 3, 4, 5, and 8 groups in Indiana, as determined by our regional experts poll rankings. So if we have 3, 4, and 5 matching up against each other, that's got to be a pretty big show. I was lucky to see both Franklin Central and North Central this past weekend. I would say that FC was 1, maybe 2 steps ahead of North Central. Although I think North Central, with a bit of refinement, because it was North Central's first comp compared to Franklin Central's second comp, I think North Central could certainly be right in the discussion. So this will be comp 3 for Franklin Central, comp 2 for North Central, and comp 1 for Zionsville. Also, we have Fishers in the mix, fresh off a GC at Anderson. Ethan or Tony, any thoughts here?
I think it could get really messy here. I feel like Fishers could throw a bow into this whole thing, and I right on cue. I think Fishers coming off a win, a lot of momentum there. I don't know. I don't want to predict it, because I feel like I'm just gonna go off what feels right, because that's just what we do as humans. I'm gonna go Franklin Central's due. Their choreography is fantastic. Will, you're lucky enough to see it in person. They ran into Center Grove twice, so they want this one. I feel like they'll take it with vocals and choreography. Why not? Zion's on the 2, and then this third spot can get a little dicey. However, I'm just gonna roll with North Central and Fishers Electrum like right behind them. Those are my top 4 spots.
Tony, do you want to throw the dart?
You were talking earlier about groups that I know, groups I don't know being from the South. I know every single one of these. This is big. Give me Franklin Central. I'll go with Ethan on this one.
All right. Seeing FC and NC, I have to put Franklin Central above North Central. Anything from there on out, I'm not going to predict. I think in the women's division, this could get really interesting as well, because Fisher Sound just dropped a caption last week, but they are, I believe, kind of still regarded as the number 1 girls group in Indiana. Franklin Central High Voltage, generally number 5 in our past rankings. Zionsville Core Layers about number 4. So we have a 1-4-5 matchup in this women's division as well. One of those comps where if it wasn't happening on this weekend, it would be like the number 1 story in the country. But alas, too much good show choir happening this weekend. We're going to round it out with the Neo Show, The Show, Troy Buchanan, Webb City, Carthage, Joplin, Rockbridge, and Jenks. We have Webb City, who has been on quite the run in Southwest Missouri, coming up against Troy, who is going to Southwest Missouri for a very rare Troy appearance in Southwest Missouri. But we shall see. Webb City with a show that has shades of Carmel from a couple years. Troy Buchanan doing a different type of show. No love in Troy Buchanan's show this year. Ethan, you just saw Troy this past weekend. Also, we have to throw in Jenks in there. Jenks has been doing well. Carthage as well. Where do you think this one will go?
Yeah, so I just saw Troy out their host performance, and you know how electric host performances can get. They're not the most technically sound, but it's definitely the most rockin' auditorium at that time. I think they have an amazing show. I think it's great. They got second earlier in the year at Milton, I believe, was choreography. So that is – and who did they lose to, Will, off top of your head?
La Crosse River City Revolution.
Revolution. Yeah, so, and that's a good choir. They're proven to be a great choir this year. I don't know. I'm just getting vibes. I just like vibes. I'm a vibe guy. You know this. And I want to be the one to say I think Webb City could take it. I don't know how. I don't know how they do it. I don't think if they won, I don't think it would be a sweep. But I'm going to be the person that puts Webb City at 1 because I want to be. And I'm going to do that. So Webb City at the 1, Troy at 2. I'm going to go Jenks in the 3. I'm just going to do top 3 because then you go down the list, and I feel like any of these groups can make finals. I don't know much about Rockbridge, but they were pretty decent when I was in high school. I know
he's washed. He's saying washed. When I was in high school.
Joplin
22.
Joplin is a great group. Carthage Soundwave is a great group. Troy Buchanan Express. I got to see their prep group, and they were good. I didn't get to see Nevada, but I know that tier with Seneca, El Dorado, East Newton, and Hollister, Mount Vernon, that is also a very tight division. So, like I say on every single comp, I'm excited to see how this goes. And if Webb City somehow does win, which they're the underdog in this one, I get to say I told you so. So that's the only reason why I'm doing it. And I think this is Troy's to lose, but we will see.
Tony, have you heard of that? Anyone here?
Yeah, this is closer to me. I know a few of these, but I think is it Lee Corso and is saying not so fast.
Yes,
give me Troy Buchanan. I got Troy Buchanan winning. I'll give Webb City second, but I also have Jenks in third. So I'll swap 1 and 2, but I got Troy walking out with this one.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it is just so hard to bet against Troy. I think if they had a stumble, it would be at the start of the season. This is a Troy group that is going to go to Franklin Central the week after that. This is a Troy group that is going to pop up at Mount Zion later in the year. This is a Troy group that has no other option but to have a phenomenal show because their schedule just does not allow for it doesn't even allow for a good show. It has to be a great show. I'll take Troy with the sweep here. I'll put Webb City in second. I'll put Jenks in third. I'll take Carthage in fourth. I'll take Webb City's girls in fifth, and I'll take Joplin's girls in sixth. Ethan, like you said, that 3A tier, Nevada, Seneca, Hollister, I think that's going to be a very solid top 3 in no particular order, but just Hollister, Seneca in 3A. That just about does it. We are at our 1 hour time. Thank you, everyone, for joining in tonight. We had tons of comments that certainly spiced up the show. Be on the lookout for our Chesterton show later in the week, or if that does not pertain to you, make sure you have a great show choir Saturday, whether that's performing, spectating, watching live streams, whatever. Tony, thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Of course. Thank y'all for having me.
With that, enjoy the rest of your week and have a great show choir Saturday. Good night, everyone.